Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome. On behalf of the young citizens of the world, we are truly honored to have you join us today. This interview is part of an ongoing global series connecting youth with some of the most influential thinkers and leaders of our time. Before we begin today's conversation, we are privileged to hear a few words from a champion of democracy, justice, and public service, Canada's ambassador to the United Nations, the Honorable Bob Rae. Ambassador, over to you, please.
Well, first of all, it's great to be with you. I really appreciate the chance to join you once again. I have to say that I think the Young Citizens of the World project is really great, and whenever I'm asked to join in the conversation, I'm very happy to do so. You're in for a real treat today. Ruth Ben-Ghiat is one of the great experts on democracy and what's undermining democracy in the world today. And I follow her on Substack. She may not know that, but I'm a faithful follower of what she does, and she does great work. And democracy is under real strain today because institutions are being challenged and undermined in very important ways. Truth is being manipulated. This is not a new phenomenon, but because of social media and artificial intelligence, it gets amplified and gets spread very quickly. And fear is being weaponized. When people are afraid to speak up and they feel they have to conform, then in very real ways, the bad guys are winning. And that's something we have to worry about. But we're not powerless in the face of this. And that's really the message I want to leave with you. And that I see a lot of hope right here in this process. Young people, teachers, schools, committed to understanding what's going on in the world and asking hard questions and really defending democratic values. But you are in the presence of a genuine expert. I'm a journeyman in this field, although I was elected 11 times in our parliamentary system in Canada, so I know a little bit about democracies. But here at the UN, I know a lot and see a lot about the ways in which democracy is being attacked and undermined. And I think it's something we should all be very alert to. So I'll turn it back to you, Filipe.
Well, Ambassador Rae, thank you so much. Your participation and support for the young citizens of the world is very visible and is very much appreciated. So a big thank you for making time to join us this morning. Now, it is my pleasure to welcome today's distinguished guest, Professor Ruth Ben-Ghiat. She is a globally recognized expert on authoritarianism, propaganda, and democratic decline. Her acclaimed book, Strongmen, Mussolini to the Present, is a vital resource for understanding how authoritarian figures rise to power and how they maintain it. Her lucid newsletter is followed by readers worldwide, and she is a sought-after commentator on global threats to democracy. Professor Ben-Ghiat, thank you for joining us between your university classes. We appreciate how busy you are, so we thank you for making time for us this morning. We'll keep it short and focused, and our first question comes directly from students across North America. And the first question comes from Cloverdale Catholic School in Surrey, British Columbia, Canada.
My name is Isabella, and I am a member of the student leadership team at Cloverdale Catholic School. My question is, we know you're between classes, so we'll keep it short. About as short as the answers you gave to Wired in the recent video we saw of you. Could you briefly share what inspired you to study authoritarianism and how your own story helped shape your voice and work today?
Thank you. I am so honored to be here, and I saw that Ambassador Rae had the Canadian modesty when he spoke. I also am embarrassed as an American for what's been going on with your wonderful country, but I'm trying in my own small way to contribute to civic education here and around the world. So to be brief, I grew up in Los Angeles in a beachfront community, Pacific Palisades, which wouldn't seem to have anything to do with dictatorship. Very nice, calm place to grow up. But it was a place where a lot of exiles from Nazism had come, like famous people like Thomas Mann and Arnold Schoenberg. And I got interested as a high school student in all these people. What did it mean that you had to leave your country and go into exile halfway around the world and like make a new life in a totally different place? So from there, I started being interested in fascism because that was, and I ended up doing specializing in Italy because there was less done at the time. So that was my trajectory. And then in 2016, I saw Mr. Trump come on the scene, and I hadn't paid too much attention to Mr. Trump before that. I heard him saying in January 2016 that he could stand on Fifth Avenue and shoot someone and he wouldn't lose any followers. And that moment was when I decided I had to start. I had the skill set and the knowledge to inform my fellow Americans that this person was a danger. And I started writing for CNN, and slowly it evolved. And then I ended up doing this global book. But that was the moment. It was my training from a child being interested in these things, or a high schooler, and then the experience of seeing this person I thought fit the playbook.
Thank you, Professor. I'll go to the second question quickly, and it's from a student in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada.
Hi, my name is Xavier. Thank you for sharing your time with us this morning. My question is, can someone be elected in a democracy and still become a dictator? And how does that even happen without people fully realizing it?
In the old days, which actually we still have the old days of the one-party states, mostly in communist countries like North Korea and China. But today, autocrats have this trick system called electoral autocracy. In Hungary and even in Russia, in Turkey, you keep elections going and you keep some semblance of multiple parties going. But you, over the time you're in office, you fix the system or you game the system so that it becomes difficult for the opposition to win. And so it's easy to, it's harder to diagnose autocracy because people can say, as Erdogan, the Turkish president, would say, well, I have elections, I'm not a dictator. But it's important to kind of study what they do. I'll give you just two quick examples. One example is if you're the leader and the whole thing about autocracy is you got to stay in power. They're desperate to stay in power, often because they're corrupt and they don't want to be prosecuted if they leave power. So they do this trick where if you have a formidable opponent who's, let's say, a very charismatic political rival, and that person, if you had a free and fair election, that person would win for sure because your popularity is tanking because you're repressive or you've ruined the economy. You simply can't let that person actually run for office. So you do something to ban them from running. Maduro did this with Machado, who's now in hiding in Venezuela. And Erdogan in Turkey did this recently with Imamoglu, the charismatic and very popular mayor of Istanbul, who was clearly going to be the next head of state if they had a free and fair election. And he's been trying to figure out what to do with Imamoglu for a long time. And then he got desperate and he actually arrested him in March. So that's one example. The other I'll give is from Hungary, where you take control indirectly of the media of your country. So again, you don't have to do it like there's the one-party state with direct state control of the media. That's kind of an old school thing. Today, you get these cronies and oligarchs and rich people to buy media properties. And this has happened in the States too, with Bezos and, the Washington Post and LA Times. And then and that way, when you've been in power a long time, like Orban in Hungary, during the last presidential election, the opposition's message never even reached voters because Orban controls indirectly 85 to 90% of Hungarian media. So silence is just as important as propaganda. If the voters don't ever know about your message because it's not being carried, because the media has been controlled by you, then you can still have elections, but they come out the way you need them to. So those are two examples. And that's electoral autocracy. And that is how somebody can come in a legal election and then over years transform the system in the ways I've described so that they can keep elections, but they don't leave.
Thank you, Professor. And thank you for that question. It was also a great question. We are lucky to have a Westmore High School from Oklahoma in the United States join us today, and they have our third question from our students. Over to you, please.
Good morning.
Hello, my name is Trinity Ceballos from Westmore High School, Oklahoma City. My question is, authoritarian leaders always seem to target certain groups first. Why do they do that? And why does it say about how they keep in power?
That's an excellent question. And I myself, when I wrote my book Strongmen, which goes over 100 years, I found these patterns I didn't necessarily expect to find. One of them is that, and I have a line in my book about this, they always go after the same people, the same groups. The through line, the group that is persecuted by pretty much everybody, whether they're right or left wing, is LGBTQ people, as they're known today. Because they pose a threat to the family, supposedly to reproduction, and all the things that many autocrats care about. Other groups are nomadic peoples, ethnic minorities, religious minorities. And so that's also why, Jews have been persecuted today, Muslims. And so these are minority populations who become targets. And then, of course, as an autocracy takes shape, the political opposition, journalists, and educators, they are always targeted because autocrats need to discredit democratic notions of truth and objectivity and research, and they need people to believe that they are the arbiter of truth. And so Mussolini's slogan in fascist Italy was literally, Mussolini is always right. So if that's your slogan, then you can see why they go after anyone that is going to be in favor of truth, really. So what does it say about how they keep power is that sadly it's often either been popular to go after those groups or eventually maybe not popular anymore, but it shows that there are patterns in authoritarianism with repression, and that we can study those patterns to be more prepared if it happens to us, and also know how to resist it.
Thank you, Professor, and thank you for that excellent question. We do have a few minutes left of your time, so I want to take advantage of that. And I'm going to ask Marc-André to maybe ask a question or two of the professor. Marc-André?
Yes. Professor, please stop me when you have to leave.
I'm okay. I'm okay, actually.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Professor Ben-Ghiat, before we close, we want to do something called rapid fire round because there's so much happening in the world, and our students wanted to get your first honest reaction to the headlines. There's too many news every single day these days.
Terrible.
NBC News reports that in addition to ICE agents making controversial arrests, there are reports of other people wearing masks pretending to be ICE agents. And in either case, they are threatening people in broad daylight and often not showing warrants. And there was a report about ICE agents realizing they had the wrong person, but the agents said, take them anyways. What's first comes to mind when you hear something like this?
I'd say disappearance, because that's what's starting to happen. That I just mentioned that states have to disappear the truth. They also have to disappear people if they feel they don't have to, but they do that when they are involved in a national purity or engineering the population for national purity. So it's not enough to hassle people or persecute them. You have to take them away and lock them up or worse. And so the history of autocracy is a history of disappearances.
Thank you. The Supreme Court refused to bring back, I want to make sure I get his name, Gilmar Abrego Garcia, a man largely living in Maryland legally living in Maryland who was wrongly deported to El Salvador, even after there was an order that he should not be removed. And there was a U.S. senator who was able to visit him in prison. First, they were denied, but recently they were able to see him. But he's still in El Salvador. What do you have to say? What does that say about the rule of law today?
I would say arrogance comes to mind. Autocrats believe that they are above the law, and that they it's not only that they don't want to respect the law, they actually have a scorn for the law. They believe that they personally should be able to do whatever they want, and no one should be able to interfere with their actions and decisions. They're also very possessive. They're their bodies. They treat people like assets, like objects. And so, of course, an autocrat's going to say, I'm not giving him back, because giving him back in the autocrat mind would be a sign of weakness.
This is causing a conflict with the Supreme Court at this time. This is a full-blown constitutional crisis. Would you agree?
Yes.
President Trump just signed an executive order to shut down the Department of Education, laying off staff and shifting the civil rights and the student loans oversight to other agencies. Does this align with what you were saying about attacking teachers in public education?
Yeah, this is about, so public education is seen as a threat. And one of the reasons is if you have a multi-racial, multi-faith society like America, public schools, I'm a proud graduate of public schools the whole way through, including my undergraduate at UCLA. They are multi-faith, multi-racial environments. They're labs of civic education. And so what they want to do in the right here is defund public education, get people either to be homeschooled, so you're in a protected environment where they're not learning anything the parents don't want them to, or go only to religious schools. Of course, religious schools should be an option, but they shouldn't be the only option. And we have to be very clear about what the agenda is for wrecking public education. And that's part of it, to get so that students don't grow up in an atmosphere of tolerance. That's part of it's political control, of course. They're doing this to everything in the United States right now, but education is particularly sensitive.
Same situation with Harvard University and other top universities, with the administration saying they will revoke their tax-exempt status and ban international students because they don't want to follow federal demands about diversity and protests. What are your thoughts on this battle with education at the university level?
This is a power struggle, and autocrats do this thing called making an example. It's a little sadistic game, one of their sadistic games they like. They take the most powerful institutions and they try and make them bend. They try and make them submit. And then if they submit, then the lower, less famous, less wealthy educational institutions, they'll think, oh, if Columbia submitted, then I'm going to have to submit. I don't have a multi-billion-dollar endowment to draw back on. So that's why one of the reasons that they went after these the high-hanging fruit instead of the low-hanging fruit, or the fruit on the ground, even.
Mm-hmm. Last question. A whistleblower recently claimed that Elon Musk, so-called government agency Doge, was not only doing read and write, but that they had massive access to data, and they were able to collect and download and delete, and that there was reports of massive amounts of data being sent over to Russian IP addresses from the Labor Department, among other things. What does this suggest about the control of information and foreign influence?
The way I see it, and I started writing about this in my newsletter just a week after Trump came in, this government is really a government that is actively seeking to make malign foreign influence easier. They have dismantled all of the roadblocks and guardrails against foreign influence, especially from Russia. So that's one part of it. The second is there's only one man on the cover of my book. It's at the background. There's one strong man. Well, we've got two. We've got Musk there, an unelected private citizen who's been allowed to kind of do what I'm calling a new kind of coup, to go in and lock out elected representatives from our public buildings and steal our data. I don't know if there's plunder of Social Security money, for example, involved, but this is actually unprecedented. So America is doing a lot of classic authoritarian things with Trump, but the Musk stuff is actually an innovation. I've never seen a case like this, where you have two people in the White House talking to reporters, two people at cabinet meetings, only one of whom has been elected. So we're in a new and difficult situation here.
On behalf of my student Logan, say hi.
Hi.
And Daniel.
Hi.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. It's been a
Mark-André.
delight. Thank you.
Professor, do you have time for one quick remaining question, last question?
I do. Yes.
Okay, there is a question on the chat that I know, and it's from Catherine.
Oh, I haven't looked at the chat. Okay.
It's okay. Catherine, do you want to ask it, or would you go ahead and ask it, please?
Thank you so much for your remarks. You spoke of resistance. What are some great tactics for us all?
One important thing is that autocrats try to divide us and turn us against each other. And when I mentioned all the groups, they go after the same groups over and over again. They sometimes go after groups who are easy, they think are going to be easy to target because no one will care. So solidarity and unity is really important. So unity of opposition is like the number one thing. If you're trying to build a resistance movement, you have to have unity across sectors. And if you can get elites involved, like who command respect and have resources, even better. But unity of opposition and solidarity, both to each solidarity in the sense of different groups coming together that might not normally work together, but also empathy and kindness and solidarity for those who are being targeted is really key.
Wise words.
Okay. Professor Ben-Ghiat, thank you so much for making time for us today. We're extremely generous with your time. I strongly believe that you've helped our students better understand the risks that democracies face and how vital it is to stay informed, to speak out, and to act with courage. So on behalf of the young citizens of the world and our 1.25 million students, I want to thank you for your voice and for your leadership and for sharing your views with us today. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure.
And to all our students, thank you so much for participating today, and teachers.
Bye.
Thank you.